When can we expect an increase in the strength of our passport? And how optimistic are you on the semiconductor growth here? Look, what do you mean by the strength of a passport? Essentially, the strength of your passport means how many countries can you travel to without requiring a visa. And if you look at that, the rankings, India is not in the top 100. If I'm not mistaken, India is about a ranking is about 110 or something. Last time I had seen, or last I recall, you can check it out. I'm not going to open that rankings over here right now. So India's ranking isn't very great. India has access to about 60 plus countries where it does not require a visa, or you can just get a visa on arrival. For example, if you go to Thailand, you can just go with your passport. You don't need to apply for a visa, and you go to the airport, and they'll stamp your passport with a visa once you arrive there. So you don't need to pre-apply for a visa. You'll get a visa, and they'll just because you're Indian, they'll give you a visa on arrival. The same applies to nations like Iran nowadays. Mm, does Mauritius need a visa? I think they give you a visa on arrival. So does Sri Lanka, I'm sure. So there's a bunch of countries that give India a visa on arrival. But if you are from Japan, if you're from Singapore, you have visa free access to more than 180, more than 190 countries, more or less. So that's the kind of strength those countries have. So how come a small nation like Singapore has such incredible visa free access to almost all nations? How come a nation like Barbados or whatever small nation, how do they have access to so many countries? So generally, to have more countries give you visa free access, you need to be a country with a high GDP per capita. That way, they are pretty sure that your citizens will not try to stay in their country illegally after the expiry of their visa or without getting visa. So if you are a prosperous, rich country, then it makes sense for your citizens after visiting whatever country to go back home because your home country is more prosperous than most of the countries. So it's generally high income nations and first world countries that have strong passports. That's how it works. Because other countries know that their citizens won't overstay their welcome, essentially. And they have enough waiting for them back home. So to increase the strength of your passport, you have to become a higher income country. That's what it is. So India needs to increase its GDP, which will lead to a corresponding increase in its GDP per capita. India will need to become a more livable country, country with better living standards. As that happens, not only will the GDP per capita increase, but India's geopolitical relevance overall globally will also increase because of its increasing GDP, which will give it stronger relations with other countries. It will make India a more attractive partner more and more for other countries, which will induce them to more countries to give India visa on arrival facilities or visa free access facilities. So, to make a long story short, to increase the strength of your passport, you have to increase the strength of your economy. You have to grow your GDP. That's the simple answer. How optimistic am I on the semiconductor growth here? I am reasonably optimistic that in 20 years we'll be one of the major semiconductor powers. Not the next 2 years, not the next 5 years, probably not even the next 10 years. But I am optimistic that in the next 20 years we'll be one of the major semiconductor manufacturing countries. And hopefully in 10 years we'll be a reasonably strong country in this domain. I am pretty optimistic.